Myth of Qur'an and Science from the book titled Meaning of the Qur'an by Muhammad Al-Amrani. Muslim scholars, scientists and students who are dealing with the subject of Qur'an and science or Sunnah and science ought to be careful. It is futile, as a rule, to extrapolate human scientific knowledge on the Quranic verses, inasmuch as human knowledge is at best hypotheses based on many assumptions. Karl Popper said, "Science may be described as the art of systematic oversimplification. Though the Quran contains clear signs and clues of scientific nature, it is not a book of science, and was not intended to be, and the scientific community is largely repugnant to theological indications of scientific nature. The fitna of science has reached its zenith in the 20th century, and though it helped some scientists go back to God, the masses in the West at least have realized that the God of science is a flip-flop and lost its appeal. One ought to be careful of the insidious spiritual and scientific defeat before the Western culture, which actuates some to run after every discovery to find its parallel or indication in the Quran or Sunnah. The conflict between the Church and science ushered in the 15th century is still raging in the West, and Muslims ought not repeat the devastating mistake of the Church, which adopted the Ptolemaic geography and model of the universe, and eventually led to that pathetic chasm between science and the Church in the West. Below we'll briefly review the status of the world we are living in, a satirical questioning, in a bid to show that neither science, nor philosophy, nor the incumbent perceptions of religions would help mankind come out of this abyss. Needless to say that human scientific knowledge is progressive in nature and has followed a more or less linear progression over the course of history, with an evident leap in the 20th century and a period of regression often follows. This outcome is normal, inasmuch as it is in line with the nature of human beings. Contrary to his scientific progress, man's faith has not followed a linear progression, rather an up and down periods. The Quran is clear that the religious history of the world has been a series of faith, no faith or dubious faith, or as the Quran calls it, Jahiliyyah and Islam, then Jahiliyyah, then Islam, and so on. In general, people have lost faith in the God of science, as well as lost trust in the God of philosophy, and lost faith in the rotten clergy and the tens of religions. Let's take a brief look at science, philosophy, and religion. What is science? Is it what Karl Popper said? Science may be described as the art of systematic oversimplification. Not enough deductive reasoning. Is not the God of science a flip-flop? What is hypothesized today is refuted tomorrow. Is the Big Bang still valid, or has been reduced to ash with the endless singularities and assumptions? Is the inflationary model valid, or is it simple quantum fluctuations? How about before the nanosecond? What model should we have? Is not the background radiation, the Hubble constant, and the helium to hydrogen concentration enough for the Big Bang? But there are the horizon, the smoothness and the flatness problem. What do the astrophysicists think? Is the universe flat or curved? Questions of cosmologists. Did the universe begin from nothingness, or from an atom, or from something? What was that something? Was it neutrons, protons and electrons, or nothing at all? What is going on with physicists? Newtonian laws have collapsed or in their way to oblivion, or still work in fixed space. What theory works in large objects and massive galaxies? Maybe the general relativity. But that does not work in the subatomic level. How about a quantum mechanics, which at least work when tested? Maybe a unified theory to combine all three and all forces in one. Call it string or superstring hypotheses. How far did evolutionists go with their search for intermediate fossil records? Did they find any? Did they manage to random mutate a life of any form and cells to create a better one? Did they refute the Cambrian explosion? Haven't evolutionists had enough time to account for the origin of life, or still facing the same problem as Jeffrey Barder confessed? Too bad the structure of the cell was not as simple as Darwin thought. Too bad an intricate and complex and marvelous world exists in the tiny cell. Or is it by chance again? Or as Fred Hoyle said in Nature? The chance that higher life forms might have emerged by chance is comparable with the chance that a tornado sweeping through a junkyard might assemble a Boeing 747 from the materials therein. Didn't Francis Crick say the DNA molecule is more too complex than ever envisioned, and it could have never emerged by chance? Doesn't the DNA contain information that would fill a 1,000,000-page, yet stored in a tiny little cell the size of 1,000 millimeters. Would not all the books ever written by humankind over their entire history be stored in a few strains of DNA? How far did the Genome Project go? Or was it enough that Francisco Collins was reborn? Did they manage to create bacteria for energy, or for biowar? What did the deciphering of the human 3 billion DNA script do for humanity? Did it cure diseases? What about philosophers? What is new with them? Is it existentialism still, or still bounded to epistemology? Did their metaphysics come to a halt? Are they happy at the stage of linguistics? Why are scientists in war with one another, and in war with philosophers, who are in turn in war with each others? Is this all a rage infracitidal diseases still grip them until they destroy any rival claimant? What is going on with astronomers? What is going on with the raging war between atheists or evolutionists and creationists or intelligent design? Is the illusion real or the illusion of the illusion? Can we break the spell or the totem and taboo? Hasn't the steady-state model of a universe collapsed, or atheists are not convinced yet? Will they throw stones at the grave of George Gamow? Where is Darwinism, which Marx, Engels, Durkheim embraced with love? Where are materialisms and the materialists? Didn't Trotsky, Lenin, Mao adopt materialist views and were responsible for the death of millions? No good mutation is possible in the lab, no new genetic transmission. Is not possible for a living cell to emerge from inanimate matter, some bond or volcano or somewhere. What happened to their cherished accidental universe? No longer valid with the laws of probabilities and the anthropic principle. Is not life contingent and peripheral in the universe? Where are the Greek materialists? Where is Aristotle? Where is Hume? And the hallucinating Nietzsche? Any new model of the universe? How about psychologists and neuropsychologists? What is new? Did they understand human nature and motives behind his behavior? What is going on with psychoanalyses? Anything new there? Where is Freud and totem and taboo? Is not religion a mental disease? Some sort of neurosis? Or is it fundamental to his mental? Health and Happiness as Patrick Glynn in God the Evidence claims, citing results of studies and research. But haven't experiments and studies shown it is healthy? How much loneliness, depression, fear, suicide, alcoholism, divorce, pain and suffering have to accumulate? How many millions in prisons and other millions in mental asylums, though their libidos were satiated to the full and more? Man has no soul, or is it a slip, or just sexual impulses? Let's debase man to an animal living to satisfy his selfish desires. What happened to the future of an illusion? Have religious beliefs disappeared as man progressed? What about Skinner and his behavior school? Are all psychologists irreligious or agnostics? Are not people in the West miserable, or as Gibbon put it long time ago, crowds without company, dissipation without pleasure? How about Western theologians? What is happening? Still fighting the nature of Jesus, S. His mother, S. What is going on with original sin? Still valid? Is the Church still willing to go down to the level of the moral and spiritual decadence of their societies and bless gay marriages and illegitimate relations between men and women? What is going on in their war with the 1,000 and so dominions? What is happening with the economists? Any new theory to siphon and bilk the millions? And the million and more politicians? What is new? Lies after lies. Aren't they but slaves to a gang of investors and corporations? And let's not forget the humanists. Is Huxley's worldview of no religion still their model? Are they seeking to establish a